Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar. You're joined today by me, Michael. We've also got Luke with us as well, who is our new energy client manager. He's also with us today, and he'll maybe taking some questions, and he'll just be able to speak to you guys at the end if you need to as well. Be really good for you to meet him. I'm sure he might have met some of you already, but he's taken over from Dylan, who some of you may have met in the previous. But yeah, he's with us today. So yeah, good morning to you as well, Dylan. Apologies. Good morning to you, Luke. Again, it's been designed as a knowledge sharing platform. As we know, it can be quite difficult to stay on top of all new technologies available alongside everything else that you've got to do in your day. So don't feel you need to take notes or take it all in straight away. We'll be sending out a copy of the recording later on today, and you'll also be welcome to share that recording with anyone else in your organization who you might find useful. If you do have any questions, drop in the Q&A, we'll pick those up. And then hopefully we'll have time to go through some of those or any questions you've got at the end. So what we're doing today, this is the third in the series of webinars that we've been running on cybersecurity in the energy sector. For those who have not seen them, our first one was about the differences between IT and OT, because we know that's quite different and quite important. There's also in our second one, the real world examples of any threats and what they may look like in your business and world. So today, we're going to be talking more about the regulations. We've had a load of questions about that. What are the regulations in the UK? What do we need to do to make sure we're protecting our systems and our assets and our power plants effectively? So we're going to be going through that. What are the current UK regs? We're going to look at how that's going to change in the future and how you might want to prepare for that. We're going to be looking a little bit on the measuring of compliance, how you would do that, make sure you're resilient ready and things like that. And also just a little bit about what we are doing for some of the people in that area. So yeah, people who don't know us, there may be a few of you. We do manage a lot of mission critical IT and OT in highly regulated organizations, including law enforcement, finance, and of course in energy. So let's start by having a look at what the current regulations are. So it's worth saying that we're looking at the main agencies, legislation, the main regulations that help you to operate safely and, more important, security. So yeah, there's lots of acts, lots of regulations around energy production and development. And so that's been really come along since the privatization of the UK energy markets in the 80s. So let's start by dispelling a little myth around assets being over 50 megawatts. Are they more tightly controlled? Well, kind of. It's in relation to planning permission, essentially. So it's nothing to do with anything else. It's to do with planning permission. Originally, anything above 50 megawatts, that was classed as a nationally significant infrastructure project. Quite a lot. That's probably the reason why they call it an NSIP. And it requires a development consent order. So rather than being subject to normal planning permission at authority levels, then those assessments are now done on environmental impact, public consultation, and all those things that maybe some of you have come across before. In 2020, that was changed a little bit to allow BESS sites over 50 megawatts to be put in without going through all of that. And a date that people might need to take note of is from the 31st of December, that threshold for PV solar and for onshore wind will change to 100 megawatts. So it's about planning permission for those people who are kind of like, oh, I'm not quite sure what that is and what it really means. Couple of other little things to look at is around the National Security Investment Act, came in July 2022. That was really the government then having the ability to call for an assessment of an acquisition. So this is really people acquiring assets in the UK to run them and development. If it saw that that could potentially propose a national security risk. So it can include transmission, generation, gas processing, energy storage, all those things. So if there's any large businesses that may be suddenly getting an injection of investment from a foreign agency, the government has the ability to step in and say, actually, we're not quite sure whether this is good for the UK economy and for the UK's future security. So we're going to have a little look at a couple of different agencies that you might come across and that you might need to report to. So one of the most obvious was Ofgem. known for their responsibilities really in the downstream market. That's what people most know them for, don't they? Protecting customers, so those price caps, protecting vulnerable people, code of practices for the energy companies who sell the energy. A lot of people know about that bit, but they also promote green energy. They also look to, they also operate the charges, so the charges that you get for connection to grid, all that kind of stuff. They also do things like the Energy Industry Voluntary Redress Scheme, another really long set of words. What that does is it allows for when penalties are applied against energy companies. So, for example, the 10.5 million that Hornsea Wind Farm, npower and UK Power Networks were fined for not remaining connecting to the grid after a power lightning strike. That went into that scheme, and maybe some of you have managed to obtain funding via that scheme as well, because that's kind of what it's partly to do with. It's just to look at getting that in and being able to distribute that out to support smaller green energy efficient kind of schemes and people. So yeah, in terms of incidents, Ofgem would be where you report incidents that means you can't supply energy that are non-cybersecurity related, whereas NCSC would be where you report incidents related to cyber incidents. And we're going to be talking a bit more about those guys later as well. So yeah, some of their work in Ofgem has moved over to NASO, so the National Energy System Operator. Some really long acronyms. They're a publicly owned company, so they're now responsible for the day-to-day planning of the UK energy system. Another department, which is a ministerial department, is the Department for Energy Security and Net Zero, or DESNZ. They're responsible for the UK energy security. So what we mean by that is they mean our ability to produce our own electric, for that or power, that to come from various sources, maybe traditional sometimes, maybe renewable. So we've got variance in our ability to produce energy. They also do things around protecting bill payers as well. They've produced a policy guidance which is for the implementation of network and information systems. That's in 2024. Do go look that up. It's a great piece of guidance around the adherence to things like the NIS regulations, using of the CAF and that kind of thing. We'll be going into those things shortly, so don't worry too much about noting those down. And anyone who's in renewable, then you would tend to go to Ofgem and DESNZ. They tend to be the authorities you report to and comply with the most. So getting to the nuts and bolts of it, what do you need to adhere to when it comes to protecting your assets? Well, that's the NIS regulations, the Security of Network and Information Systems Regs 2018. So that was originally a EU law which we inherited, and we kept that following Brexit. So that's currently the law and the regulation in the UK at the moment. It's part of the government's National Cyber Security Strategy 2022. Again, a really good document to go and find and read. It's a high-level strategy, so it's not specific to energy in that respect, but it kind of outlines the cyber security and resilience kind of visions the UK government are looking at in terms of strengthening our cyber ecosystem, making us a more resilient country, and also allowing people to take the lead in, and companies to take the lead in technologies that are vital to our cybersecurity, helping us detect, disrupt, deter, those things we talked about in the previous webinars. So yeah, NIS provides the legal measures that help boost the level of security. So that is both cyber and physical. So if people need a bit of feedback and a little bit of information on physical controls, we've got some webinars on that. Reach out to Luke. He'll be able to help you out with some of those, or you can go look on our YouTube channel. And it means that we've got those kind of legal measures around network, the security of network and information systems. Obviously, it includes those essential services that you guys are a part of, the transport, there is energy, water, health, etc., etc. It mandates a couple of things, and these are a couple of responsibilities that it starts out with. It mandates GCHQ as a single point of contact with regards to any network and information systems in the UK, and it's designated as the CSIRT. That basically is the central place, and if anyone's got 27001, they will be familiar with the concept of a CERT, or the Security Incident Response Team. If you have an incident, then you would obviously, as part of that, you can therefore take you would call the GCHQ, or in this case, the day-to-day responsibility would lie with the NCSC. So you would actually ring them or contact them, as they're a department within GCHQ is responsible for those two things. And then they would be able to pull together that team that they've got and their CSER, and they would be able to start helping you out. And that does mean that all of your cyber incidents that you would have, you would look at those, and your CERT would look at those and see whether or not they are reportable, and you would report them to the NCSC. It also mandates who is an OES. That's quite important, an operator of essential services. So any operator who comes under that, they are deemed critical to the economy and the wider society. So if there were any problems with your energy production, that could cause serious consequences for the UK. So for any electricity generators, anyone who generates a total capacity of 2 gigawatts or more, that's a very key threshold. For gas, it's an input of 20 million cubic meters of gas per day. And for any who distributes or transmits energy, then that's the potential to disrupt supply for up to 250,000 or more consumers. So that's kind of defining factor as well. So there's a couple of things there that would say whether you're an OAS or not. If you are an OAS, then that is audited, and it's audited in line with the NCSC's CAF. So for those people building systems, and there might be, oh, we need to align with 62443 and other such things. Well, actually, if you're an OES, you should be aligning to the CAF. And yes, you know, as part of what we do, we would align to make sure you're bringing in 62443, because we said it's an OC specific standard, so that's really good. But the standard you would actually be assessed against would be the CAF. They do recommend that standards such as 27001 and also business continuity management 22301 are also followed, because of course they help to align you pretty easily, give or take, to the CAF, which is really good. An incident should be reported to the NCSC no later than 72 hours after you're aware of the incident. It's quite hefty fines for those people who don't comply with any of that. Up to £1 million for having a contravention that even if it doesn't have the ability to cause an incident, the fact that it could cause enough of one would be £1 million. And it just goes up from there, which is probably where something like the 10.5 million that I spoke about before came from. You know, 8.5 million for the material convention that has been caused. So it results in an interruption of service for a significant period of time. And then if you do something where it's actually an impact to threat to life and all that kind of stuff, we're talking bigger fines. So yeah, quite substantial. So what does that mean for small energy providers? I know we have quite a few on the call, so it's always worth going through that. Technically, there's no obligation to adhere to NIS. That's basically the upshot of that. However, you know, there may be other things that you need to adhere to. GDPR is definitely one of them. So you having a problem and therefore leaking, say, customer data or personal information would be a problem. And you may also have something controls as part of your compliance in Connect International Grid as well. And I think the other thing as well, you know, we've talked about cybersecurity, we've talked about why it's important in previous webinars, but you know, does doing nothing mean you're considering your due care and due diligence? Are you doing enough to ensure that the confidentiality, the integrity and the availability that we talked about in that first webinar, have you made sure that they are doing enough to ensure those things as part of your IT and your OT systems? It's worth having a little look at NIS 2. Even though it's not directly part of the UK's kind of regulations. But if you do work in the EU and anything, you'll probably be aware of NIS 2. It extends the scope to more sectors and into more entities than it did under NIS. So waste management, chemical production and energy. It does a few things in that as well. So the concept of an OES, which I've just talked about under UK regulations, is completely replaced. That's replaced by the distinction by an essential or an important entity. So essential entities, that includes energy, and it includes a lot more than it did before. So it includes renewables. It means that you've got to have greater cyber controls, and you've got tighter reporting timelines. There are some exceptions still, such as small and local generators, community projects, solar and onshore wind. Farmers who have probably got a few wind turbines or some small solar arrays, those types of things, they may not be included. It tends to be around if you've got less than 50 employees and you've got turnover less than 10 million euros. If you've got more than 50 people and you take in more than 10 million euros, then you're going to end up being included. And also in terms of distribution, instead of being over 250,000 people, it's at 50,000 people, so a fifth, a lot less. So yeah, that would mean under NIS2, more providers would come under those regulations. The cybersecurity compliance is a little different to the UK. As we say, we've got it mandated specifically for us, but in the EU, because it's an EU regulation, it tends to take a slightly different form in terms of compliance and posture review. It might be that you would align to NIST or to 27001 or to 62443, or for financial, it'd be like DORA and stuff like that. So there's a few more options in what you would align to, which makes sense. The idea is to try and tailor to the particular kind of area that you work in. So let's have a little look about what's coming up in the UK, because I know we've had a lot of talks with some kind of small builders and some small providers about what's coming up and a little unsure about it. So this is the Cybersecurity Resilience Bill. This was announced at the King's Speech in 2024 in July. So the current information that we have with regards from that, you can go look it up. It's on the government's website. There's an update from April 25 this year. Managed service providers would be brought into scope of the regulations. That helps to keep digital supply chains secure. They're also bringing extra things in about supply chain, but for those people who already run to the CAF, then you may already be looking at that already, which is great. As we know from some of the previous webinars, the kind of your supply chain is one of the biggest risks to you. It also improves cyber incident reporting, as we said to regulators. That'll bring that down. It will establish a cost recovery system that allows them to enforce the regulations. They'll be able to invoice and things like that. It'll give government the power to amend the regulations. We don't expect it to particularly change name much. It's not going to be NIS 2 or NIS 2 point whatever. It's probably just going to be called NIS still. But they will just amend that over time and be able to do that with a bit more effectiveness and a bit more agility to try and make sure that they keep up with the current threats. It also enables the Information Commissioner to take more risk-based approach in terms of things like digital services and things like that. So yeah, it's kind of bringing a bit of NIS2 in, seeing what's been learnt from the European government's implementation of NIS2, and it will also mean that energy providers who are not designated as OES would potentially now be an essential service and therefore of those tighter controls. As we said already as well, ransomware as well, that's an interesting one that's there. It's just been talked about at the moment. It's not sure whether it's going to come in or not. We'll find out. But there is the potential for ransomware to be recognised as a specific risk that would possibly end up making it illegal to pay ransomware because it contributes to terrorism. So yes, it would actually be illegal for you to pay your way out of that. More duty of care around the supply chain, as we said, similar to NIS2. That will change from it being guidance as part of the CAF. So if you follow the CAF, you'll be kind of using the CAF guidance and doing that. That would be regulated. So you'd have to prove that you are doing that. As we said, MSP has been brought into scope, reporting updated. So it'll go from being 72 hours to you having to report within 24 hours. And then with an incident report to the NCSC within 72. For those people that hold PII, so personal information, which might not be entirely relevant, you think, to you guys, but may be relevant to other areas of your business, the ICO will get given more powers. Anyone who has 27001 will already know they have to report to the ICO on any potential information issues, and you have to be registered with them as well. So yeah, there'll be some more stuff to do with that. And as we said, that improvement of them to be the ability to recover costs. So if they need to come and visit you, or they need to do an assessment, or if they have to do any enforcement, they have the ability to invoice you any fees that they get from that. So when will it become law? That's the thing that I guess a lot of people are asking. Well, at the moment, that's looking at being presented into Parliament later this year. And I saw an article from the head of the NCSC, and that still looks like that's going to be the case, with it becoming law the first half of 2026. So how would you measure your compliance and your readiness? A couple of different ways, really. Cyber Essentials Plus, great ways of bringing you in line. And also obviously doing a CAF assessment that would essentially bring you into line with the NIS 2018 for those at OES, and potentially doing that CAF assessment would make it more tailored to CNI than 27001, with 27001 specifically being an information security certification. You can also align the CAF to 62443, which is what I said earlier, in order to ensure that that CAF is tailored to your particular business and the energy that you produce and the way that you do it, etc. Hopefully, with those, you'll be able to get a better understanding of your duties of care and diligence, and also prepare you for the Cyber Resilience Bill, or to be NIS2 compliant and those types of things. So in terms of those, we do a number of things really in terms of helping people and supporting them and understanding what their duties are. One of those is the webinars that we're doing at the moment. It's great to see people on these. I've been able to get the information. They're also kind of a bit of a community thing too. It's great when people come to us and say, oh gosh, it'd be really good if you just did something about this, because it's something or they come and talk to us and say, I'm really kind of confused about that. And a number of you do that, and then we'll go, okay, let's do a webinar on it, because we can kind of talk to you guys individually. But it's really good to kind of share the information like this, and for you to then be able to share that with your stakeholders or whatever. That's always a good help, I think. So yeah, the webinars, we do some readiness assessments. So we can kind of do those like an initial assessment that might be aligned towards more Cyber Essentials Plus, or maybe something a bit more in depth, such as the CAF. So we do a lot of those with people, because we've certainly had some people who said, right, we're a small producer, but we're looking big, and we really want to make sure that we've got ourselves in the right place in terms of our security posture, to ensure that as we grow, we're kind of able to deal with things that happen in the future. So yeah, and also, as well as providing that kind of help and bringing those kind of things to people, we're also helping out in terms of providing the systems and services, and some of that we do that for you guys. That might be the actual systems that make sure they align to NIS, whether that's your secure implementation of SCADA systems, whether that's the secure access to those systems, especially as you now need to be looking at those and working from remote op rooms and all those kind of things, and aligning them to NIS, the CAF, 62443, or whatever you really need. And also, some of you are like, how do I kind of get my board to understand the importance of this? There may be some things that may be important to them in terms of understanding health and safety, understanding the business continuity and their ability to run if there's any problems and all those types of things, but being able to have a risk assessment and say, right, that's it, that's a risk assessment, to bring it to them so they can fully understand all of the risks that are posed to your business, and potential mitigations that can be helped. We've been told has been really useful. So we're doing a lot of that with people at the moment. So that being said, do we have any questions?
Hey, Mick. Yeah, we've got a couple that have come through.
Okay.
So obviously you've just covered a lot of cybersecurity frameworks and regulations to adhere to, or at least take into consideration.
Yeah.
And this person's asking, how should boards decide which of those in particular are worth investing into without going overboard, but also trying to stay on the right side of regulators as well?
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, because like I said, we get that question quite a bit, really. And a lot of that does start with that initial assessment. And as you say, that generally the level will depend on the appetite. And you might start at the lower level at first. So we might just start with something based on that Cyber Essentials Plus. And from that, we can produce a risk assessment and a risk register. So list all your risks. And then what you can do is present that to the board with you guys and say, right, these are all the risks that you've currently got. And I think that's really important. It's really important to get their buy-in. And actually, again, anyone who's got 27,001 is a key point of that. It's a key point of Cyber Essentials, that you've got the board buy-in on these things. So it's really good to give them that, because it gives them kind of the clarity. It gives them the kind of just lay of land, exactly what's there, so that they can decide with some recommendations from us sometimes if that's what they want, as to what to do and what to invest in.
Great. Okay, and there's one more, and it's talking about the cybersecurity resilience bill that's set to come next year. And they're asking, what should smaller non-OES energy providers be looking to do now to make sure that they're not completely blindsided when it comes?
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, it's I'm sure there's some businesses, and I've seen this in various others, like get ready for it now, and all these things you need to do, and they're making probably some quite wild assumptions about what it may or may not contain. For us, it's looking at, we're all there to try and make sure we're all more secure. We're all there to make sure that we, provide the energy and make sure we can do it safely and securely, and make sure that doesn't get taken out by a cyber attack. So I think for the smaller businesses, I think that is looking at how you can start to align yourself with that. And as I say, and I've said it before, there's no real great shakes between suddenly, you're doing something in, say, Cyber Essentials, like the lowest level of a certification. And then when you jump to something like doing the CAF, it's not suddenly that thing is just what you're doing is suddenly entirely different. Security and good practice is key all the way through that. Yes, there might be some different things, and there might be some kind of more detail or more rigor, or there might be some other things that kind of you need to do up there for obvious reasons. But the kind of fundamentals that start with Cyber Essentials is kind of there all the way through. So I would say the best thing to do really is to come and speak to us. I mean I don't really often do that because it's not really what the webinar's about, but kind of come speak to us. We can help do an assessment. We can look at and that's the point of that assessment, is just do an assessment, have a look at what you're doing now, no judgment on that, just what you're doing now, and say, okay, if you want to kind of align yourselves to becoming more secure, and just some key little good practice you can start to put in place that will help you move forward and be able to start to become more compliant, and then into NIS2 and into the cybersecurity, the resilience bill that's coming up.
Brilliant. Thanks. That seems to be everything that's come through. So back to you again.
No, fantastic. So yes, hopefully everyone managed to get something out of that, and we're able to learn something. If you do still have questions, or you do still have some worries or whatever you're doing, then feel free to get in touch. You can get in touch with Luke, and that'd be great. So yeah, the next webinar is going up in November 2025. This will be an ongoing sequence of cybersecurity webinars. The next one, we're going more into the detail of that compliance of cyber essentials and the CAF and that kind of thing. We'll go more details in that next time. So yeah, Cara's going to post a link to the next webinar. So get signed up, and yeah, thank you for everyone's time, and enjoy the rest of your day.